Have you ever had that feeling where you realize you're kind of your own worst enemy when it comes to making a big decision? Well, today we're diving into a practical guide for a skill that can honestly change how you see, well, pretty much everything. We're talking about critical thinking. So let's get right into it. So this is a true story. And you know what? It's the perfect metaphor for what we're talking about today. Here's a guy whose own choice, his own setup was the very thing that brought him down. It's kind of funny, sure, but it's also a perfect picture of how our own stuff can trip us up. And that really gets to the heart of the matter. Forget about the baggy pants for a second. The real question is, can our own thoughts, our own mental habits and assumptions trip us up just as badly when we're trying to navigate our lives? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is a big, flashing, definite yes. Okay, so if we're constantly at risk of tripping over our own thoughts, how do we stop it? Well, we learn how to shift our brain from automatic into manual. And that, right there, is the essence of critical thinking. It's not about being negative or just poking holes in other people's ideas. It's about consciously taking the wheel of your own thought process instead of just letting it cruise on autopilot. When you boil it all down, critical thinking is just thinking about your thinking. Yeah, it's that simple. It's the moment you step back and ask yourself, wait a minute, does this idea I have actually make sense? Is my reasoning solid here? It's like putting your own thoughts on the witness stand to see if they hold up under questioning. Oh, I absolutely love this analogy. Think about it. Your mind is kind of like an athlete, right? And without a coach, even the best athlete can develop some pretty bad habits. Critical thinking is you stepping into that role. You become the coach for your own mind. You observe, you analyze, and you push your thoughts to get better, stronger, and to stop tripping over themselves. So if we're the coach, who's the opponent we're training to beat? Well, a lot of the time, the opponent is actually inside our own heads. So let's pull back the curtain and unmask some of these invisible forces that are constantly trying to distort our thinking. Let's talk about cognitive biases. Now, the really important thing to get here is that these biases are not random mistakes. They are predictable, repeatable patterns. They're like mental shortcuts that our brains love to take, but they can seriously mess with our ability to see things clearly and objectively. And here's the kicker. They affect everyone, no matter how smart you think you are. All right, let's put our first bias under the spotlight. And this one is a really big one. It's called belief bias. This is our natural tendency to decide if an argument is logical based on one simple thing, whether or not we already agree with the conclusion. Okay, look at how easily this can trick your brain. On the left side, the conclusion, German shepherds are dogs, feels right. It's true. So our brain just goes, yep, sounds logical. But the logic is totally flawed. Now look at the right. It's the exact same broken logic. But because the conclusion, cats are dogs, is so obviously false, we spot the error in about 2 seconds. That is belief bias, right there in action. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that our brains can be kind of lazy. They want to take the easy route and just agree with things that feel familiar and true. But a really strong critical thinker learns to separate those two things. They ask, is this conclusion something I believe? And then, as a completely separate question, they ask, is the argument to get there actually sound? Okay, next up, we have a bias that's all tangled up in our social DNA. It's called in-group bias. This is our automatic, unconscious habit of giving a free pass to people we see as being part of our group, whether that's our favorite sports team, our political party, or even just our department at work. And this bias plays out in some really predictable ways, doesn't it? We see the people in our own group as these unique, complex individuals, but outsiders, oh, they're all the same. When our team succeeds, it's because we're brilliant and we worked hard. When their team succeeds, it's because they just got lucky. And when we fail, that was just bad luck. But when they fail, well, that's because they're fundamentally flawed. Sound familiar? It's a powerful, powerful force. And for our last spotlight, let's talk about a bias that pretty much every single one of us has fallen for. It's the overconfidence effect. This is our tendency to think we're way smarter and more skilled than we actually are. You know, it's kind of like the mental version of thinking you look amazing in a photo that everyone else agrees is just awful. And this little chart just puts it all into perspective. So in an informal test, a bunch of students were asked to rate their own critical thinking skills. And get this, a massive 80% of them rated themselves in the top 10% of the class, which, is mathematically impossible. It's the classic better than average illusion, and it's a perfect example of just how much we overestimate ourselves. All right, so we've seen the enemy, and a lot of the time it's us. We've identified these mental traps, so what do we do about it? Well, now it's time to equip ourselves. Let's open up the Thinker's Toolkit and learn how to actually deconstruct arguments and claims to see what they're really made of. You know, when it comes down to it, almost any argument has two basic parts. You've got the conclusion, that's the main point someone is trying to sell you on, and then you have the premise, that's the because, the reason they give you for believing it. Like, it's gonna rain, that's the conclusion, because the sky is full of dark clouds, that's your premise. As soon as you can separate the what from the why, you can start to question both. And that's the first real step to thinking critically. Okay, next tool in our kit, we have to know what kind of claim we're even looking at. An objective claim is something that is either true or false, no matter what anybody thinks. The claim, there is life on Mars, it's either true or it isn't. Our opinions about it don't change reality. But a subjective claim, on the other hand, is all about what people think. There is no factual test for being a cool dad. Knowing the difference tells you what to do next. Are you looking for hard data, or are you trying to understand someone's personal values? So, we've defined what this is, we've unmasked our own biases, we've even opened up a toolkit. But why does any of this actually matter in the real world? Let's talk about the practical power you get when you start to really flex these critical thinking muscles. Seriously, think of these as your new superpowers. You suddenly gain the power to see when someone's trying to win you over with an emotional story instead of a rational argument. You can tell when a claim is built on flimsy evidence. You start spotting those sneaky logical fallacies from a mile away. And you learn how to build your own case on solid ground, which makes you way more convincing. At the end of the day, we live in a world that is just flooded with information, and let's be honest, misinformation. And in this world, the single greatest defense you have is your own well-trained critical mind. It's the filter that protects you from bad ideas, and it's the compass that guides you toward better decisions. And I want to leave you with that thought. Take all of these ideas, the biases, the tools, this whole concept of rational evaluation, and just think bigger for a second. If our society, if our world practiced more critical thinking, what is just one big decision you think we might make differently? It's a powerful question and one that's definitely worth thinking about. Thanks so much for joining me today.